All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May Local Government Resources Call. We're coming to you live from 1313 Sherman in downtown Denver. I'm Eric Bergman, Director of the Division of Local Government within the Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, as we are more commonly known. This bi-monthly call continues to serve our local communities, providing an access point to DOLA and our partner agencies with relevant updates and resources to support local government operations. Let me go through today's agenda. First, I'll go over some DOLA updates from the State Demography Office, the Division of Housing, and of course, the Division of Local Government. Next, Ann Miller, Director of DLG's Colorado Resiliency Office, will provide a brief update regarding the statewide drought task force and where you and your community can find resources. Eva Branson from the Governor's Office of Federal Funding and Strategic Initiatives will go over a few updates from the federal level. And finally, we'll go into our two-part webinar presented by our friends at the Colorado Resiliency Office. You're welcome to put questions in the chat or the Q&A feature as we go along. Any questions that don't get answered by our subject matter experts during the presentation will get addressed at the end. We will throw links in the chat, and we will also send out notes, slides, and a recording of this call within a few days, so no need to scramble to try to take notes today. Now, let's get into some DOLA and partner agency updates. First, from our State Demography Office, the U.S. Census Bureau 2025 municipal population estimates are now available. The State Demography Office, or SDO, will summarize trends in its next newsletter. The 2030 Census Action Plan is now available on the SDO website. The plan outlines SDO's planned 2030 census education and outreach activities based on Colorado's experience with the 2020 census. On a sad note, state demographer Kate Watkins has accepted a financial leadership role with the University of Colorado system. Kate will continue in a part-time capacity until June 12th. Projections demographer Neil Marcus is assuming the role of interim state demographer while the position is filled. We will certainly miss Kate, and I wish her the best at my alma mater. You can expect the same level of service from the SDO as we hire for this position, and we'll keep you all posted. Now, Division of Housing news. State housing voucher program status. Due to the broad success of the state housing voucher program, which helped create more than 4,500 new supportive housing opportunities statewide, all currently funded state housing vouchers, apart from the community access team vouchers, have been utilized. This means the previous temporary pause on issuing new tenant-based vouchers, which began in April 2025, is anticipated to continue for the upcoming years. Please note this pause does not apply to CAT vouchers, community access team vouchers, and this will not result in anyone currently receiving housing assistance losing their voucher. In support of the continued creation of high-quality supportive housing opportunities, DOLA included 100 project-based state housing vouchers in the 2026 iteration of the annual request for applications for creation of supportive housing, released in November of 2025. These are reserved for new construction developments. While DOLA is actively working to secure additional federal resources for the creation of supportive housing RFA, DOLA's ability to include additional project-based vouchers within future RFAs is limited. However, DOLA will continue to honor and support all existing conditional determinations of project-based vouchers. Additional information is anticipated to become available in November 2026. If you have a supportive housing project in pre-development and might apply in 2027 or beyond, please make sure you're connected with your housing development specialist and or with Zach Schaffner. New factory-built structure rules. The revised administrative rules related to Senate Bill 25-002, Regional Building Codes for Factory-Built Structures, have been passed. After review by the Attorney General, the new rules will be effective June 30th, 2026. Through this statute, regional building code models will be developed to meet or exceed the most stringent design criteria in your local jurisdiction, for example, like for elements like wind load and snow load, but will give the manufacturers flexibility to use one set of construction drawings to be used in multiple locations. This will allow for single family and townhomes, accessory dwelling units, and other factory built structures across the state to be built quicker, more efficiently, and at a lower cost. News from the Division of Local Government. Our Community Development Office. Incentive funding is still available for early adoption of Fast Track by June 30th. Local governments that adopt a Proposition 123 compliant expedited development review process by June 30th, 2026 will qualify to receive up to $45,000 in grant funding with no local match required. To learn more and for support with Fast Track policy adoption, please visit DOLA's Fast Track website or join our weekly Fast Track office hours every Wednesday from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. The Housing Planning Grant Program offers funding to support housing needs assessments, housing action plans, and comprehensive plan elements, including strategic growth and water supply. The next funding cycle will be open July 13th to August 17th, 2026. An informational session will be held on July 9th. For the planners on this call, DOLA hosts monthly land use and housing legislation implementation and management webinars on the fourth Friday of each month at 10:30 a.m. These webinars are now eligible for 1.5 AICP CM credits. There will not be a webinar this month, though, but we look forward to seeing you on June 26th. Civic Solutions Summer Innovation Workshops. This summer, the DOLA Civic Solutions Hub will offer a series of free workshops designed specifically for local government teams and public servants. These 1- and 2-day sessions provide the tools and frameworks necessary to foster innovative, forward-thinking practices within your jurisdiction. For dates, workshop descriptions, or to register, please visit the Civic Solutions Hub workshop webpage. Other DOLA event highlights. The Housing Strategies Peer Exchange webinar is tomorrow at 9 a.m. This is a monthly peer exchange series for local governments working on affordable housing strategies and land use issues. The May topic is local government water supply element and water conservation policies in comprehensive plans. A webinar from the Division of Housing on Proposition 123 unit counting for the 2023 to 26 cycle will be held on May 28th at 11 a.m. to offer an overview of how to accurately count and report units toward local government's Proposition 123 commitments. The monthly peer exchange for Colorado's 2025 Wildfire Resiliency Code implementation continues with a webinar on June 3rd from 2 to 3 p.m. Please register, attend, and receive peer exchange related email updates. Important Prop 123 updates. 2 bills from the 2026 legislative session provide key updates to Proposition 123, or this is also known as the Statewide Affordable Housing Fund. Talk about what this means for local governments. I'd like to introduce our friend Ashley Wiesner, Proposition 123 Community Support Manager. Ashley, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Yes, so we have Senate Bill 040. And what that does is that modifies the definition of affordable home ownership. And what it increases from 100% AMI to 120% AMI. So that'll be extremely important. We also have House Bill 261313, which fundamentally changes the way that jurisdictions will be doing their baseline calculations. So that'll also be extremely important. We also will have website updates. And so all of the latest and greatest information will be put onto the website. We'll have one-pagers for each of those bills. We also have upcoming webinars to describe and kind of delve into the details of these legislative changes. And that's all I have for you, Eric.
Great. Thanks, Ash. Appreciate that. So that's it for our DOLA specific updates. I will now introduce Ann Miller, Director of the Colorado Resiliency Office, for a quick update on the statewide drought task force. Ann, go ahead. Ann, are you there?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes. So I know we're all very concerned about the unprecedented drought conditions we're all facing right now in Colorado and the impacts across the state. And because of that, the governor activated the state's drought task force recently, and it's made up of senior leaders from the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Ag, Department of Local Affairs, and the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And is meeting monthly now. And this is a group that's really looking at understanding the impacts across the state and communicating resources to impacted folks across the state, including local governments. It is not a policy-making group, or really monitoring conditions and communicating those resources and advising the governor and leadership on actions. So one of there's some ad hoc groups that are starting to form. One of them really is focused on accessing and communicating existing resources across each of those member departments that participates in the task force. I will drop in the link to the main website on the Colorado Water Conservation Board. They're convening this task force. And I'll drop that in the chat. And you will find links for each state and their resource pages, including DOLA. Again, there's not new funding, so it really is looking at existing funding and other resources available. If you have specific concerns that you want to raise around impacts to local governments, I'm going to also drop my email into the chat. We do have the third Drought Task Force meeting coming up on June 1st. It is simulcast, and I'll drop the link to that YouTube site as well. So we really want to be available and responsive to hear your needs and concerns. So please reach out and we will keep you updated in these meetings. Thanks.
Thank you, Ann. Next, Eva Branson from the Governor's Office of Federal Funding and Strategic Initiatives will provide some federal updates. Eva, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for that intro. So I want to provide some congressional updates and some litigation updates, and then also some federal funding updates. Just as a reminder to those of you who have not seen me on this call or other places before, I work in the Governor's Office of Federal Funds and Strategic Initiatives, and my role is Local Government Federal Funding Advisor. So I am here to help you all as it relates to any and all things federal funding. So jumping straight into congressional updates, there's 3 bills that I wanted to highlight for you all today. The first is Reconciliation 2.0, and that's referring to a bill that is trying to designate funding for ICE and for Customs and Border Patrol. As you probably know, then those funding for those agencies lapsed a while ago, and so both chambers of the legislature are trying to find funding for those agencies through fiscal year 2029. So as recently as today, then Senate Republicans have put forth a proposal that might be voted on later this week. And that's also in light of the fact that President Trump has given Senate Republicans a deadline of June 1st to get a reconciliation bill passed. So just a heads up to keep an eye out for that if that's something that you're following. Another bill that I wanted to highlight is the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. That is a bipartisan bill. I talked about it on the last resource call as well, but essentially it's aiming to boost housing construction and affordability. And so it's slated for House consideration pretty soon. It's already been through the Senate and got some amendments, so definitely keep an eye out for that bill. And the third one is the Farm Reauthorization Bill. That bill has already passed the House. And it would authorize a bunch of USDA funding programs that local governments would be eligible for. Also, SNAP benefits and specialty crop support, those would all be authorized through 2031. And so, as I said, it's passed the House, so we're just waiting on the Senate now. And the timeline for that is still to be determined. Then we can go to the next slide, which is a few litigation updates. So, the first case, it's the tariffs case that challenged the March 2026 new tariffs. So the U.S. International Court of International Trade granted a summary judgment for the state of Washington. Unfortunately, Colorado's claims were dismissed since Colorado is not an importer. So we aren't going to be benefiting directly from that ruling. And then another update, the Colorado retaliation lawsuit is what we've been calling it at the state. That is a lawsuit that lists a list of retaliatory measures that the Trump administration has taken against the state of Colorado. And so the AG's office filed an amended complaint recently to include claims pertaining to Safe Streets and Roads for All denial. So you might remember that last year's fiscal year 25 Safe Streets and Roads for All, no Colorado communities were awarded funding. And so that denial is being included in the lawsuit, as well as the denial of Colorado's FEMA disaster relief claims. So that's it for litigation updates. I want to bring your attention to some of these open grant opportunities. These are the ones that are coming up pretty quickly. So the Safe Streets and Roads for All that I mentioned in the last slide, the fiscal year 2026 cycle is open currently, and the deadline for that is on Tuesday. So that is right after Memorial Day. So if you're planning on applying, I would recommend trying to get that application in this week. There's also a bunch of Water Smart programs that are open right now, and those are through the Bureau of Reclamation. One that I wanted to highlight that we're currently supporting a few applications on is the Small Scale Water Efficiency Project, so the SWEP. That's due in June. And then another few, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but another few that I just want to highlight is the Bridge Investment Program, which is due in the middle of June, June 15th, if you're applying for a planning grant, or at the end of June on the 29th, if you're applying for funding for a bridge project. And then also the Water Smart drought response programs. It looks like the asterisks got removed from this slide, but everything that's on the slide except for the Community Connect program are eligible for grant writing support or matching fund support through the state. So those links are going to be in the slides that are sent out to you after this session. So feel free to look into that and apply for support if those are opportunities that you're interested in pursuing. And then I just want to wrap up by again reminding you all that this is an up and coming program, the Colorado Local Legal Support Program. That's a partnership that my office has with DOLA, very close partnership, and some philanthropic funders as well. We're still navigating through a few contracting hiccups, but we're hoping to launch later this month, or in the worst case, sometime in June. But that'll be free legal support to you all as local governments and also nonprofit organizations that are headquartered in Colorado. If you're facing any kind of federal funding issues that you need legal support that you don't have access to in-house. So hopefully at the next resources call, then I'll have some more concrete information about that program and it'll be up and running. But for now, just a flag that that's coming up. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Great. Eva, it's great to see you. Thanks for that update. Let's now get into the first part of our webinar covering resources your community can use to mitigate the risk that comes from extreme heat. Marguerite Harden, Senior Resiliency Manager at the Colorado Resiliency Office, and Abigail Purvis, Climate Preparedness Manager in the Governor's Office, will take us through this. My friends, you can take it away when you're ready.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I first just want to set the table a little bit about why we're highlighting heat today. This week is Heat Safety Week, hosted by the National Integrated Heat Health Information System. The goal of that is to really raise awareness about the dangers of heat and provide safety tips. So you may see some social media things around that generally this week. Additionally, as you certainly know, we've had an unusually hot and dry winter. Just to show you a little bit what this looks like in terms of mapping, the first map on your left shows the temperature departure from a 30-year historical average for the months of January to April of this year. So you can see that in the first 4 months of this year, we've had certainly higher temperatures than normal. In fact, March 2026 was warmer than more than 90% of the past Aprils in Colorado. We've since seen our temperatures kind of cool off since highs in March and April, but it reminds us that it's important to prepare for heat and certainly to prepare early. And then the second map on the right shows a future projected warming scenario of what our climate could look like in the future. So this map is measured in number of days that we may experience over 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see that in the future, we're seeing that with more warming, we would have more days above 95 degrees per year, certainly on the eastern plains, especially in the southeast and along the western slope. And I also just want to flag that these maps don't tell the whole story of heat in Colorado due to our unique geography. For example, we know that our low humidity and elevation changes have a big impact on how heat is experienced across the state compared to other parts of the country that have really high humidity. Because of this, we know that things like access to shade, overnight temperatures, and nearby vegetation are all really key factors in how heat is experienced and a big part of our planning around this issue. And then finally, just in terms of resources that might be helpful to keep to stay informed about current and future heat, linked on this slide, which it sounds like you'll receive, is the link to the Colorado Climate Center based out of CSU. That's where I generated that first map. They have an amazing amount of data about our current climate conditions and past, and they send out a monthly climate summary email that I find really helpful to kind of like table set where we're at and what we're experiencing. And then the map on the left comes from my office's climate preparedness roadmap, which is also linked. And that really dives into the ways that Colorado may experience many different climate hazards in the future and kind of what that means for our communities. This map specifically is from 2023, but we're updating that risk assessment now, and we'll have an updated version at the end of this year with new climate modeling and kind of an updated risk assessment. So just a flag on that will be coming soon. Yeah, and I'll pass to Marguerite.
Thank you, Abigail. And I apologize, my video isn't working today. But now that we have seen this dire outlook from Abigail, I'm going to actually go into more of what we can do about it. And we at the Colorado Resiliency Office have partnered across state agencies to develop this tool that I just linked in the chat. It's a robust tool that provides guidance for local government climate adaptation. So climate adaptation looks really different and climate impacts look really different across Colorado's unique and diverse geographies. And so this tool takes really a menu approach where any local jurisdiction can choose amongst the 29 different actions that really span across 5 different sectors based on what impacts are most important to them. And so these are really actionable guidance documents that can take the form of planning or assessments or policy or implementation actions. And here I have listed the 5 different actions that really relate directly to different extreme heat actions that local governments can take. And then I have an additional 4 related actions that maybe aren't exactly in line with extreme heat, but complement any extreme heat actions that you take. So for example, extreme heat mitigation can take a large number of forms. It could be that you have a white roofs program, that you're reducing the albedo in the urban center. It could include that you have a tree canopy or green infrastructure work. That last action on community forestry program really relates to that tree canopy work. And so there's a lot of co-benefits with doing a forestry program. It's not only benefiting extreme heat work, but it is one of those sub-actions within extreme heat mitigation. And on this next slide, I'm going to just give a little bit more of a deeper dive into specific actions that you can do. So next slide. Great. So this first action really relates to an initial step local jurisdictions might want to do around heat action planning. And this really takes a long view of how to approach heat action in specific to your local jurisdiction. And so it provides some resources on how to identify the populations that are most at risk to extreme heat impacts. And there is a complementary action on advancing climate equity that is linked here. There's also how to integrate heat into existing plans if your local jurisdiction doesn't want a separate heat action plan. There's also other ways of tailoring solutions to community needs. And we include best practices, local actions that have already taken place as examples. Also, a lot of funding resources are included in this guidance. So that's if you want to take a heat action planning approach. In this middle column, you can see there's also an extreme weather preparedness. So that's not specific to heat. It could also be extreme cold, but it's really meant to evaluate and create a plan for how you respond to any extreme weather, including extreme heat, which can include how you communicate extreme heat is coming or is here. And that can be a really critical step for local jurisdictions to take. We also have actions around establishing weather centers or cooling centers, as well as community resilience hubs, which there's an entire action around, or distributing air conditioning units. And finally, the last action I've listed in this right column is around extreme heat mitigation. How might you be thinking about access to water and shade, especially for those most vulnerable populations, how you might administer weatherization programs or promote the state program around weatherization assistance, or how you might create green corridors. So that's just a little bit about how this tool and guidance works. And I hope that you all can dig into this and share with your local jurisdiction partners to see what you can do around extreme heat. Besides this guidance for local government climate adaptation, I wanted to also just link to a number of other resources. CDPHE, or the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment here at the state, is the lead for us on extreme heat and have created a large number of resources, which we can drop in the chat, as well as some other resources from the Colorado State Forest Service, the Weatherization Assistance Program, which comes out of the Colorado Energy Office. And also right now, FEMA is offering a Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, or BRIC program, that the cycle applications are due on June 1st. But, that funding is really meant to reduce risks to hazards across many different hazards, including extreme heat. So that is all for me. I will pass it back to Eric.
Thank you so much, Marguerite and Abigail, for that update. We now move on to our feature presentation today. Our speaker today is Shayle Sabo, Resiliency Program Manager, and she will go over the newly released update to the Colorado Resiliency Framework. Shayle, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. Yes, I'm very excited to be able to share with you all more information about our latest iteration of our Colorado Resiliency Framework. Before I jump in, though, just a quick clarifier on why it says 2025. This plan is updated on a 5-year cycle, and the planning process for this latest iteration happened throughout 2025. So while it was released early 2026, this is the 2025 to 2030 plan, keeping it nice and simple for the 5-year cycle with 5s and 0s there. All right, next slide, please, Veronica. So what we'll just kind of cover today, we want to share the state definition of resilience and how that applies to this framework, what the framework actually is, what's new in the 2025 version versus the previous 2020, and then I will close with some resiliency planning resources that are pertinent to local governments. Next slide. Awesome. So what do we mean when we say resiliency? We know that this can be a kind of nebulous term. And so the state of Colorado takes a very holistic and broad approach to resilience, and that's very intentional. And the purpose for that is that we can seek solutions that span across community sectors and identify and surface co-benefits where we can have multiple solutions to benefit a wide range of challenges and opportunities. And so just quickly, for the purpose of the recording, the definition of resiliency from the state perspective is that it is the ability for communities to rebound, positively adapt to, or thrive amidst changing conditions or challenges, including human-caused and natural disasters, and to maintain a quality of life, healthy growth, durable systems, economic vitality, and conservation of resources for present and future generations. So definitely keeping that future-leaning lens while also balancing the challenges of today. Next slide, please. So what is the Colorado Resiliency Framework? So you are welcome to use the QR code that's up here on the screen to peruse it as we go through this. And I also am dropping the link in the chat in case that's easier. Next slide. But before I go into this in detail, we're going to have a little bit of an inception moment. Next slide. There we go. And I'm going to actually show a video that was created that showcases myself and Anne, who you're hearing from today. But this is a great kind of synopsis, summary, overview of the framework to give you a flavor of what we're going to talk about today. So I will pause there and we can start the video.
Colorado is a state of breathtaking beauty, but it's also a state of constant change. From shifting climates to evolving economies, we all share one goal: building a stronger, more resilient Colorado together. Hi, I'm Maria de Cambra, Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, as many of you know us. In this video, we will introduce the Colorado Resiliency Framework, the CRF. We'll also talk about what it is and how this framework can serve as a valuable resource to prepare your community for and recover from things like natural disasters, economic transitions, or critical infrastructure challenges, and also thrive in the face of change and uncertainty. So what is resilience? Colorado state law says it's the ability to rebound from, positively adapt to, or thrive in changing conditions and challenges. To build resilience, communities should strive to maintain or improve quality of life, opportunities, and resources for present and future generations across Colorado. Now, here's the team in the Colorado Resiliency Office, which is housed within DOLA's Division of Local Government, to take us through the framework.
Hi, I'm Ann Miller, Director of the Colorado Resiliency Office at DOLA.
And I'm Shale Sabo, Resiliency Program Manager. The Colorado Resiliency Framework, or Framework, is a statewide plan that identifies risks to communities across several areas and provides real strategies to prepare for and reduce those risks. The 2025 update is the third version of the framework and builds on the progress we've achieved together since 2015. The framework inspires creative, forward-thinking solutions to help create sustainable, resilient, and strong communities. It exists with the goal of providing Coloradans with equitable access to resources and places to call home that can adapt and thrive in the face of change. Resilience looks different for communities across our state as we differ in geography, climate, financial resources, capacity, and likely hazards. To create the strongest possible plan that addresses this diversity, the Colorado Resiliency Office brought together over 600 Coloradans, including representatives of state agencies, local governments, nonprofit partners, local businesses, and more for an extensive engagement process. Their ideas were incorporated to develop the 19 strategies and 46 actions you'll see in the updated framework. So how is the framework relevant to you? It was created to be actively used as a blueprint for action. Over the next 5 years, State of Colorado agencies will collaborate to advance the strategies to support your communities to adapt and thrive. So what are we preparing for? The framework covers 4 key areas. The first is risks from hazards such as extreme heat events, wildfires, drought, and more. The framework provides strategies to reduce the impact of these hazards. Second, the framework identifies opportunities on how to best be efficient with available funds and how to improve equitable access to resources. This is key in supporting the communities and individuals with the greatest needs. Third, the framework addresses how an evolving future impacts our economy. For example, how do emerging technologies affect Colorado's industries and workforce? The framework covers potential solutions to support local and regional economies, especially in rural communities. Finally, the framework looks at the impacts of climate change across all of and recognizes it as a force multiplier, something that could worsen the current and future challenges. Planning for these changes is essential for the future that we want.
In addition to the broad themes we just talked about, the 2025 framework also defines 5 specific priority area goals that state agencies will advance over the next 5 years. They are: reduce risk across communities and sectors from all hazards, build a future-ready, inclusive economy, advance resilient, interconnected, and modernized infrastructure systems that strengthen essential services and communities, equip and empower local governments to advance strategic growth objectives while reducing risks to development, and increase and preserve resilient and affordable housing. Each priority area also includes 2 to 4 strategies and associated actions state agencies can take to strengthen resilience. These state efforts will have a range of positive outcomes across Colorado, helping build safer and more connected communities, maximize collaboration and efficient use of resources, and to incorporate co-benefits, or actions that produce multiple benefits for multiple stakeholders, helping limited resources be stretched farther. Sparking economic conversations will help communities across the state adapt to change and to build diverse, future-ready economies. Colorado has been at the forefront of statewide resilience efforts since the first framework in 2015. Now, we've explained what the 2025 Colorado Resiliency Framework is. Whether you represent a Colorado government, business, community organization, or are a community member, we invite you to use the framework to learn about risk and challenges in your community.
And explore the strategies your community can use to prepare for, adapt to, and thrive in the future. If you want to learn more about this progress, check out coresiliency.colorado.gov. You can also stay in touch by signing up for our newsletter. Thanks for taking the time to learn more about the Colorado Resiliency Framework. Moving towards a stronger Colorado together.
All right. Thank you for allowing us to highlight that video. It is also on our website if you wanted to reference it once again. But we'll go ahead and jump back into the presentation here if you want to go to the next slide. So touching on the vision, this does kind of reflect our overall resiliency definition, but I just wanted to point out that this vision is very future focused, looking at solutions that address the needs of our most vulnerable communities and those who need access to resources in a disruption event, and of course are looking at the ability to adapt amidst change. Next slide, please. And I'll go through these just really quickly because the video I think did give a good overview of this, but just to drive a few points home on how the framework is structured. So we have the overall kind of focus is to look at co-benefits across each of our community sectors. If you want to just click through this to the next piece, Veronica. Thank you. So again, we have the 4 overall theme areas looking at social benefits, looking at economic resilience and vitality, and then also impacts to our environment. But overarching all of that, because we see climate change as a force multiplier that can exacerbate existing stressors in our communities, climate change is kind of all encompassing, and that's a lens at which we are looking through all of our different actions and strategies. Next point. I already mentioned the community sectors, looking across each of these areas, making sure that we're having benefits across all of them, not duplicating and not creating silos at the same time. And then the last point, I don't know if it's like lagging a lot on my end, so I apologize if there's like a lot of awkward pauses here.
Gail, do you need me to forward?
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was forwarding and I'm like, it's not going. Go ahead and click the next. There we go. So just also driving home kind of the context and history of where the framework has come from. So again, this is the 3rd iteration of the framework. Our office, if you are not familiar, was originally the CRRO, meaning Colorado Resiliency and Recovery Office, and was established in the Hickenlooper administration following the 2012 fires and 2013 floods, which are, of course, events at that time that kind of rocked our state. So at that time, leadership recognized at the state level that we should continue to be prepared for things to be exacerbated due to climate change and also experiencing ongoing stressors such as population growth, industry transition, et cetera, that these could continue to be a challenge, if not get worse. And so we needed to take action now to be able to set ourselves up for the future. So when the CRO was established, along with that, we also established the Colorado Resiliency Working Group, which is the interagency group that the CRO oversees and convenes, but is a space for collaboration across agencies to advance resiliency action. And so that was really stood up following the standing up of the CRO, but then we also established our first framework in 2015. In 2018, to kind of insulate the CRO from administration changes and due to the coordination, especially that we do with local governments, we were moved into the Department of Local Affairs, and our name was changed from the CRRO to this Colorado Resiliency Office. And then in 2020, we saw the first update of our framework, which again, this was decided by the CRWG. It's not necessarily in state statute that we have to update it every 5 years. We just wanted to make sure that we are building a cycle that allows this plan to stay relevant and current, knowing that things change rapidly, but also being able to continually look ahead from a generational perspective. And we do like to joke that this plan is updated frequently amidst disruption. So during 2020, of course, that was quite a year of disruption with the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as some of the largest wildfires we saw in state history. And then as we're updating again, this most recent time in 2025, also a year of disruption as we saw large changes in some of our traditional funding systems and things like that. So we're continuing to be nimble and navigate as the conditions change, again, while also kind of looking to the future. Next slide, please. Just pointing out what the framework is and is not. So the framework is intended to be holistic in nature. It's not meant to be duplicative of other plans. There are a lot more specialized plans that agencies might have that they're pursuing on their own, or more kind of intentional plans that are looking at very kind of niche areas that the resiliency framework kind of helps to support. It is an opportunity to identify co-benefits across sectors, and it's not owned by any single agency. And that means it's also not owned solely by the Department of Local Affairs or the Colorado Resiliency Office. We convene our partners around this plan, but it is a statewide effort. And then it is intended to be dynamic and able to evolve as conditions change. So there have been periods where we might need to adjust some of our strategies and actions as we go, depending on what happens. If our state experiences a disruption of some kind or something like that, we're able to adjust course as needed. And then, of course, just driving home, this is meant to be forward-leaning as well. Next slide, please. And then one of the things that we adopted during the 2025 framework planning update was our North Stars. So this is meant to kind of drive how we did our update, in that we want all of the activities associated with our framework to orient us towards these same common shared values. But this also is going to be applicable as we move from planning into implementation as well. So we want to make sure that everything that we do as it relates to implementation addresses each of these North Stars or results in these things as outcomes. So things like ensuring that we're actually making changes that drive system level change, making sure that we're looking at addressing barriers that prevent access to resources, are balancing both local and state priorities, are looking at equitable pathways and outcomes, making sure that we're addressing those communities that have most needs. And then we also have our resiliency criteria that we use to just kind of vet and check that we're actually producing resilient outcomes. And then again, thinking about changing conditions of the future and how those might impact some of the activities we take today. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of another way to just look at our framework structure. I'm going to just kind of go through this quickly. So our overall vision, of course, helps drive where we're going. We have established our priorities that were determined by the Colorado Resiliency Working Group subject matter expertise, as well as our community outreach process to determine what are those most pressing issues that we need to be addressing over the next 5 years. And then we measure progress by making sure that we are utilizing effective metrics. And then our strategies and actions help drive progress forward. And again, we vet those actions through the resiliency prioritization criteria to make sure that outcomes are actually inherently resiliency building. Next slide. All right, so what's new since 2020? Excuse me. So as we've mentioned, this is updated on a 5-year basis. So jumping into the next slide really quickly. I wanted to bring up this slide about the local government survey and resiliency planning. So first and foremost, thank you so much to those of you who took the time to respond to this survey. I know you guys get a lot of surveys, and I really appreciate you offering your time when I know it's limited. But we are very pleased to see from this survey compared to the 2021 that there has been a lot of resiliency integration at the local level. Over 91% of local governments, when surveyed prior to this update, mentioned that they are talking about resiliency planning to some degree, with almost 3/4 of local governments believing that they have the political will to engage in resiliency related work. So it's really great to see that valued at the local level as well. And then top priorities that were identified by local governments across the state were strengthening infrastructure, reducing risks to natural hazards, and improving access to resiliency funding, so particularly flexible resiliency funding. And then some of the top concerns that local governments expressed were wildfire risk, which I think is pretty unsurprising, especially in a year like this year. Housing affordability and economic stressors across the state were pretty consistent. Next slide, please. We also wanted to point out that the framework does not operate independently, but it is more of like an umbrella approach. So you can think of this as being the foundation for how states can achieve future readiness. So I mentioned earlier, this is not meant to be duplicative or, replace any other kind of specialized plans, but instead is just kind of helping to serve as that umbrella that these specialized plans kind of roll up into. So I just wanted to have this slide up here to acknowledge many of the specialized efforts that have a tie to resiliency that have been developed since 2020. This isn't even all of them that are listed here. There's been many, many, many more. But these were also utilized kind of in a reverse sense to help inform some of the risk assessment measures of our 2025 framework and updating the data and information on those. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to quickly highlight some of the key themes that were identified from the 2025 framework update process. I'm not going to go over these in a ton of detail because we're short on time, but just at a high level, because of things like climate change, because of things like more population density in hazardous areas, et cetera, we're starting to see greater intensity of impacts of natural hazard events. We see a year like this year where we have prolonged drought that could exacerbate fire conditions this summer. So it's a continual thing that we're starting to see in Colorado. Next slide. We continue to see inequity in Colorado. There's been a lot of great progress in this area, but especially things like financial inequality or access to resources continues to be a challenge. And so that's something we're continuing to address in this next framework. Next slide. Changing economic potential. Something that wasn't as relevant in the 2020 framework that is now is things like automation and AI and how that's kind of shifting our workforce perspective or thinking about the ways that our industries are changing over. And so especially in kind of rural areas, we're starting to see a lot of shifts in industry. And so keeping apprised of what our workforce needs to be equipped with and how things are going to change is something that's a really key theme in the economic resilience aspect of our framework. Next slide. And then unsurprisingly, we continue to see a challenge with affordable housing. And in particular, we're looking not just at housing stock availability, but also because of things like natural hazard impacts, we're also thinking about resilient housing and how housing is built, as well as things like insurance affordability and how that's all kind of encompassed into this. So we did just hear from Marguerite, who is also leading some of the wildfire resiliency code conversations that play into this as well. So this is just going to continue to be a theme, and we have a whole priority area based around resilient housing as well. Next slide. And then something that I know local governments are also kind of feeling the tension with, but a key theme that was in this framework update was a lot of the implications due to shifts in federal policies, programs, and investments. So a lot of the traditional funding streams that we may have relied upon in the past have shifted, or even some were kind of completely done away with or something like that. And so thinking about what those chains look like for funding availability, but also thinking about shifts of things like disaster management and how that landscape is going to look moving into the future for state and local governments, and how that'll impact things like recovery and planning and all of that. So this is something that we continue to keep a pulse on, and has definitely shaped the nuances of some of this new framework. but also thinking about how can we better bolster our own like self-reliance as a state moving forward, knowing that some of these systems that were traditionally in place may not be there in the future. Next slide. And then I think the video did a really good job of going over our priority areas. So I'm not going to go into those into detail today to leave room for questions, but you will see, excuse me, the dry air. You will see that our 2025 priority areas do get a little bit more nuanced than the 2020 framework that looked really kind of more sector-based approach, but these are looking at what are those areas where there truly needs to be collaboration to be able to advance progress here. So this is something that not any single agency owns and really does require that collective action approach to be able to be successful in making progress. So these are the 5 areas that we're going to be focusing on over the next 5 years. And again, these were vetted by the subject matter expertise of the Colorado Resiliency Working Group, as well as the robust community engagement process that we did this last fall, talking with over 600 different Coloradans across the state. And then just quickly on the next slide too, we do have, in addition to these 5 priority areas, 3 overarching strategies. So these really do apply to all of the different 5 priority areas and are embedded. And so they are related to enhancing state agency integration and institutionalization of resiliency, integrating resiliency into existing and future funding, as well as exploring and pursuing flexible resiliency funding. And then lastly, coordination and alignment around use of tools, data, information, et cetera, and seeing how we can improve technical assistance opportunities and programs for the communities that we serve. All right, and then Veronica, I'm gonna have you rapid fire go through the next couple of slides. These are our different priority areas. You will receive these slides, so if you wanted to dive into each of these and the strategies and actions further, you're welcome to do so, but we're gonna go ahead and just flip through them. All right, and pause there for just a second. So I did want to just mention, while this is a plan that drives a lot of state agency action, there is benefit and support from the framework for local governments. So there's kind of 2 key ways that this plan really does support the local level. So first and foremost, we encourage you to use the framework as a guide. And there has been local governments in the past that have used the framework in that way. So I have the example of the Larimer County Resiliency Framework that was done following the first framework in 2015. So you can utilize information here as it relates to risk and emerging issues. So using some of that data and information that's included in the framework, but also thinking about coupling it with your own local data and assessments to inform your own local resiliency planning. And additionally, of course, while the priority areas and the strategies and actions, again, kind of drive state agency action, you can use it as a guide to tailor your strategies and actions to your own local priorities. And then secondly, this framework, as mentioned previously, provides strategies and actions that shape our technical assistance efforts. So this is how we can better inform the supports that we provide to prepare communities for future conditions as well. So thinking not only from our Resilient Colorado Communities program that the CRO helps to convene, but also how we coordinate that work across our state agencies as well that also have community-facing programs. All right, and then we will wrap up with our last slide here, which are a slew of resources for local governments that we have at the Colorado Resiliency Office to support your local resiliency planning efforts and initiatives. So I think a lot of you are already familiar with the local community funding guide. This was launched when the bipartisan infrastructure law and the IRA were available, but also it continues to be kept up to date regularly with available funding resources that are eligible to local governments and tribes. And then we also on our website have an expansive, and these links are included in this slide that you'll receive after the fact. But we have an expansive searchable resource hub that has a wide array of plans, tools, programs that could be used to inform your local planning. And it is more of kind of a nationwide resource versus just resources that are pertinent to Colorado. But there's everything from climate adaptation planning to economic resiliency planning to all kinds of things. So there's a lot in there. And then we also have a couple of different toolkits that provide guidance on not only resiliency planning, but also pre and post disaster recovery planning to give you step-by-step instructions on how to prepare your community for different types of events. Marguerite mentioned this earlier, but we do have peer exchanges right now. The one that we are helping to host is for the Colorado Resiliency Code implementation. However, this is an available resource that if there is a specialized topic, such as extreme heat, we have done roundtables on those in the past as well, that this can be requested to convene local governments to discuss key issues, troubleshoot challenges, or surface solutions for issues that we may be facing. I think a lot of you that are on this call have also already participated in Camp Resilience, which is a workshop that supports rural communities and regions across the state to adapt to change. And it's a really kind of fun exercise to participate in. We have case studies that reference examples of successful resiliency efforts in the state. So some really good lessons learned. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention we have our Planning for Hazards resource, which provides tools, information, and tips on how to utilize land use solutions to reduce risk to hazards. So a really great planning resource there as well. All right, and then we just ask you on the next slide to just stay in touch with us. We have a couple of different ways to continue to stay up to date on information, and we strongly encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter if you have not already. And then stay tuned when we bring back our annual Resiliency Summit, and we will have our first progress report early next year for the first year of our implementation of the framework. So thank you for your time. Thanks for letting me go through that rapidly, and definitely available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Shale, for highlighting all the collaborative efforts out there that go into making Colorado more resilient. I want to thank all of our speakers and to all of you, our participants, for joining us today. We are now going to look for any questions that were not answered, or if you have questions for Shale or Anne or Marguerite or Abigail, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A function. Are there any outstanding questions out there, guys? Okay, I'm not seeing kind of, and again, if you have all of our contact information is contained in the slideshow itself for our speakers, and so if you have follow-up questions, you can direct them to the speakers directly, or to myself or Veronica Hewitt here at DOLA. So there's a lot of information today. Look for a follow-up email with the meeting recording and materials, including the notes and the Q&A. Please join us for the next call next month, July 15th will be our next call at 11 a.m. Be sure to sign up for the Division of Local Government's newsletters or follow DOLA on LinkedIn and Facebook for topic announcements. We hope everyone has a safe and fun Memorial Day weekend. Take care, and we'll see you next time.